Welcome back to UPB Dental Academy. This is Dentistry in Depth and Interactive, and have we ever had some great interaction in the last little while? You got your first hater. But, on a serious note, the topic right now with the two colleges at odds and some of the challenges that we're having is very serious. And first of all, we appreciate all the engagement because we're in a world right now that everybody gets a voice. And we're not picking sides one or the other because I think all the conversations are relevant. All the points people are making are extremely important. And it's not up to us to decide the future of where this goes, but it's certainly a forum that we've created so that we can talk about it. And definitely appreciate the engagement of people that have been jumping all over this topic of college versus college.
Yeah, we just wanted to bring attention to the subject, and we really want to show in an interactive way that everyone's dealing with it differently, and what I might be doing and what somebody else might be doing is very different. One of the things I found out just recently from somebody that goes into different offices on a daily basis, he said basically every office you go to, they're doing different things, and it's very confusing to the staff and it's very confusing to the patient. Now, the issue of the RCDs versus EDHO, essentially all we want is to have a set of rules that unite us, not divide us. This whole thing and us talking about it has created a massive conflict between hygienists and dentists. And so when we bring up the topic of what some of the dentists are doing, we're not saying it's right. We're saying that's what's happening. So the reality is that we want to fix it. We don't want to agree with it. And in fact, in my office, I have implemented every recommendation that we were originally told. So the CDHO standards are happening in my office, and my hygienists are all coming back. So anytime somebody takes our comments and assumes that's what we're doing, no, we want to bring attention to this topic, not say lower your standards.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think the standard as governed by the government of Ontario and the regulatory body for the dentist is again higher than it was before COVID. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate that we are at the sticky point, and that's what all these talking points are about, is how do we create this cohesive mesh between the two colleges so that we can move forward so that there's not hygienists losing jobs. And in fact, dentists have been hiring other dentists and new grads to do cleaning and hygiene work.
Yeah.
And yeah, people debate that's not a good idea and they shouldn't be doing that, but
if people choose to hire a dentist in place of a hygienist, what I think they're doing from some of the people that we've spoken to is what I'm hearing is a reaction to the conflict. And personally, the people that I know that have done that are the people whose hygienists went on social media and bashed their names. So when you hear your name being smeared across social media before you've had a chance to react, you can't blame people for basically saying, I'm not dealing with this, I'm just going to go off on my own way.
And the office still has to function, and the office still, and everybody gets jumpy on this one, has to be profitable. But it's at the end of the day, we're still in the business of doing dentistry, and that's a really tough pill and a crossroads for some people to handle.
Yeah.
And then you have some people that have never had a business trying to debate the fact on the cost of doing business, mm-hmm. which is even more frustrating for someone like yourself when they're saying, well, dentists just have to suck it up, which is a fair statement if you own a practice, you run a business and you're doing it. But if you don't, and you've never had the experience of overhead or staff, those are naive comments as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I just find it funny. We've talked about this many times, but I feel like, if our patients are coming back to us and you don't feel that we should be charging them for PPE, that we have to pay out of pocket, then shouldn't we have the same argument and say to our suppliers, well, if our patients can't pay it and we have had financial struggles and can't pay it, then shouldn't the supplier provide it at no charge? And then the supplier should eat the cost? Or should maybe the banks eat the cost who are financing all these offices? At what point does it stop? At what point, maybe Jeff Bezos could provide it? I don't know.
He'll deliver it. He'll deliver it.
But at the end of the day, and the cost of it has been argued with us too quite a bit. And I feel like it's funny because when I did first price it out, when I was getting trickles of PPE coming in, and I made a comment, or we've made many comments about it being $46 per patient per provider. Yeah. I actually noticed that somebody made a comment about it, how we don't know how to do math or something like that.
Yeah,
it was a comment. So I went back to my office and pulled the invoices to see exactly what we had originally paid. Now, as of course PPE becomes more available and the supply is there, because right now initially we had the supply demand issue.
Demand, yeah.
As it becomes more available, the cost will decrease, of course. But I actually wrote down the cost. So the N95 masks, I paid $500 plus tax for 40 masks. Okay, so that puts it at $14. So whoever's questioning the math, get your calculator.
Write this one down.
Okay.
Make a note.
The gowns that we got, the initial gowns we got a box of 10 because the suppliers were rationing them per dentist so that we could all have a few to see emergencies. So I got 10 gowns, disposable, so it's not like you can wash it, at $120 US. So convert it to Canadian, add the tax and shipping, and you're at $19 a gown that you throw out after you're finished. And then there's the face shield. Now, yes, you can get a cheap face shield. I tried a bunch of different face shields, and when I'm working, it keeps sliding off. So in order to buy a face shield that stays, and I don't have to constantly adjust it because we're not allowed to touch them once we start, it's $11 a face shield. So the reality is that when you add those numbers up, you are looking at $46 for the first set of PPE. Now, depending on how much you've ordered, PPE is not refundable or returnable, which means I can't take the $46 stuff, return that, get my money back, and now order something at $25. You've already paid for it. So if you've bought, like I did, ordered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items, you've paid the $46 per PPE in some shape or form, whether it went on your Visa or it went on credit or some other credit, or it's an IOU to your supplier, you owe that money. So yes, it will become less expensive, but right now, this is what we're all paying.
Right. And the other thing that we're facing, again, like you said, there's this rift that is, being drawn down the line in an office between hygienist and doctor because of the two colleges. And our thing has always been pro-hygienist. We've always supported the hygiene
100%.
We're 100% behind getting them back and getting back up to standard. And, I showed you on my phone the other day of how many hygienists are reaching out to me saying, listen, we are tired of our college. We don't support what they're doing. We just want to come back. We should have one governing body. And I know that's a whole other video.
That's a whole other conversation.
But again, when you get 300 and 400 messages from the person that this college is supposedly representing that totally disagree, want to create their own voice, what do you say to them? What do you say to the hygienist who's frustrated right now because of their own college?
Our whole thing has been about creating a positive change, and yet I think people misinterpret what we're doing a lot of the time, because the reality is that I'm actually really, really happy about the fact that we are implementing all the changes, all the PPE that we're doing, everything that we have to do. I mean, I've got air purifiers, I got doors going on in rooms, I got all the PPE lined up. I mean, even like my dad is helping me build this giant, PPE station with everything that's lined up, so we know, we can keep track of it and we have endless supply. So the reality is that I feel like, I am always going to be the devil's advocate in terms of the stuff that I'm seeing, and I'm going to point out what people are doing, because we have to point out all the different behaviors. That doesn't mean that I agree with it. The fact that somebody fires their hygienist and hires a new grad is a personal choice, and you don't know what led to that. You don't know what happened behind closed doors. The reality is that when you hear that, you want to announce it so people know what other people are doing, so we can have a conversation around how to solve it properly and elegantly, and not lash out or bash or have these crazy, or go to global news and do these reports that
are upside down,
basically lower our reputation instead of elevating all of us together. So it's not, the solution is not to bash the dentists or call them uneducated or comment on all the stuff that you disagree with. Disagree 100%, but the name calling and the bashing has to stop for us to be united and elevate our profession.
And I think when we put ourselves out there to do what people are not doing is talk about the difficult subjects and to really hone in on what's actually happening. Like people don't like to talk about this stuff because it's either taboo or we have this certain model of the world that we have to follow. And I think by us just taking that can of worms and splaying it out, like cutting the fish open and going, there are the guts, what are we going to do about it? Who's going to clean up this mess, and how do we go forward? I think that's that's something that, we are opening ourselves up for people to either love it, which we have a ton of support, which is amazing. You're getting thousands of views on this stuff, which is amazing. And yeah, are people always going to agree? No. And I appreciate every single person that agrees. I appreciate every single person that doesn't agree. I love the fact there's a hater. It makes us YouTube relevant. I think it's great.
All we're doing is trying to get the conversation going so people can unite together, and maybe as a unified group, dentists and hygienists and assistants and receptionists and office managers or whoever else, bookkeepers, I don't know, get everyone together. And maybe when people start talking about it and saying and supporting us, the providers of PPE to our staff, maybe then we can make a difference.
Number one priority is always the safety of the patient and ultimately the safety of our teams. We totally believe in that. And you know what? Let's see what happens. This is an interesting game. We're going into the second half of 2020 now. Let's play to win. I'm Mark Gaylord with Dr. Egg with this Dentistry In-Depth and Interactive. Stay tuned because this is going to be good.